Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert
and Ryan.
And today we will be discussing Star Wars: The Bad Batch episodes 8, 9, and 10.
Indeed, we did not have time last week to record for 8 and 9, which would have been a perfect little pair of episodes because they tie right into each other.
Yeah, great. Now, so we just have to totally talk about a separate one that doesn't even really tie into the last ones, but whatever. It's just how it is. And Ryan's going to give you the names of the episodes right now.
Reunion, Bounty Lost, and Common Ground. Yay.
Now, we're going to just try and keep 8 and 9 a little bit connected because they do, they are.
There's a direct tie-in between the two.
Yeah, and then we'll kind of talk more about 10 in a more specific manner.
And we may go a little briefer on the episode recaps as well.
But I guess first impressions, we can say either like episode by episode or just overall or whatever.
I can do episode by episode. That's fine.
Yeah.
So Reunion, which was the first time that we're re-seeing Cad Bane in the show, and we get more Crosshair. I quite liked that episode, and I actually watched it late. I watched it I watched it after the following episode had come out, so I was able to watch both of them in one sitting. So it's actually kind of a bummer that I didn't have to sit and wait to see what happened to Omega between the episodes. But having them tie so well together, I actually think was also good. So Reunion's a good episode. Bounty Lost, I think, is a little... There's good parts about it, but it also feels like they have to force stuff in there to fill out the time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then Common Ground was a decent episode. This would be like a filler episode.
Yeah. So yeah, my impression, episode 8, I actually thought was great. It was really just the what we knew was coming. That that clash and that reunion of Crosshair and the Bad Batch, and like a cool showdown. I really just enjoyed it. There's a lot of parts of the episode that are just good, and so
Cad Bane's arrival, I think, was just kind of like a legitimate surprise.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't really see it coming. Would have just assumed that Fennec Shan was just going to show up again.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Cad Bane, definitely a series, favorite, I think. Someone I'm going to be honest, actually, I almost forgot about him because it's been so long since I watched the Clone Wars. And so he just was gone from my memory. When I saw him, I was like, oh, wow, sick. Like, this is cool.
Here's the thing. I want to say in the last podcast we did, like, I had said something to the idea of they're just going to keep popping in like random Star Wars characters. And I don't know if I had brought up Cad Bane, but he was one of the people in my mind that was going to show up in here. And you know what? Here he is. And just, I'm wondering who's coming back next episode.
Yeah. And then, so leading into episode 9, I think episode 9 was cool, really chiefly because we watched Fennec Shand and Cad Bane battle.
That's the cool part.
Yeah, that's a cool part of the episode.
But
otherwise,
it's not the whole episode.
Yeah.
There's a lot between it, a lot of Seth Green robot antics.
Yeah, and all that's just kind of like whatever. So that, like, it had such a cool, like watching those two fight was really cool. And we obviously did get a little bit of movement. We see this thing with, is it Tonway that gets killed, I think?
Tonway is the one that gets shot.
Yeah, so we see, like, one of the Kaminoans, Tonway, dies, and that's, there's, like, some movement in the kind of general story here, but this one was just, like, not particularly as significant. Because the thing is, I just feel like the Bad Batch literally were doing nothing. They were just like, well, I guess we're just waiting to try and find her.
Yeah, I think if anything, that's the biggest critique of the episode is that it's not. This feels like a Clone Wars episode, not a Bad Batch episode.
That's exactly how I feel. Like, this is,
but
like,
it's a pretty good Clone Wars episode, not a great Clone Wars episode.
Yeah, exactly. So that is basically the impression I get. And honestly, I was thinking it's like, oh, like the Bad Batch wasn't even here. I'm like, it actually doesn't necessarily super matter that the Bad Batch isn't featured in one of their episodes prominently. Like, we're still getting some cool Star Wars story and everything.
And we get a little bit of lore dump in this episode, which we'll get into when we do the like proper recap.
Yeah. And then episode 10, this did feel like another filler episode. I see that it serves some purpose here, and I think there's part of it that does lend to one of my theories, but I also think that another one of these episodes actually takes away from my theory. So, but yeah, that episode is just kind of like meh, whatever. Like it's an okay episode, it's cool. We get to see him doing some stuff.
I know what you mean by the theories, and we'll get into the episodes, but I don't know if this is relatable to you. The part of Common Ground, the episode 10, the part that I was enjoying the most was honestly Sid and Omega doing the gambling. That was the more interesting. It wasn't a big part of the episode, but like I kind of like their interplay more than I like the internal like the episode description had something to the effect of the Bad Batch have to reconcile like with some like opposing thoughts. And I'm like, do they really, or do they just kind of like accept that this guy, that they're helping this guy?
That is, I believe, that summary totally threw me off too, because it says they have their ideologies changed or something like that.
That's what it was.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like expecting there to be some kind of like moral dilemma here.
And you see like Echo like pretty like, oh, he's a separatist, I don't like that. And then at one point Echo's just like, you gotta survive to another day, mate.
Like I get, maybe we should like get to this more in the talking points, but yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. So let's kind of get our recap going for episode 8,
Reunion.
Aptly
titled.
So the Batch is still on the junk planet, which now it's been so long I can't remember what the name of that planet is. They're there. They're getting some. They're like knowing that they owe the debt. They need to get some kind of like return out of this mission, and they realize that they can salvage some of the weapons and the data from the starship that they're on. So while they're working on that, basically they get and I think there is like a cutback to where it's like, hey, go like we have a detection on this planet, like the Batch is there.
We see Camino, and their Crosshair is dispatched after the Scrapper Guild tip off of information is sent to the Empire. And we also get a little bit of the Kaminoans doing their like side thing. We get let's see, what was the name of the Prime Minister? Lamasu hiring a bounty hunter to try and retrieve the girl, who we see who the bounty hunter is.
But so they hire somebody and they send Crosshair out after the Batch. They arrive there on the junk planet, and the Batch basically they're like, hey, we need to like circle up and we need to like get out of here. And they're trying to do what they can to avoid the troopers. And as they're moving through one of the bays, basically the troopers all surround them, and Crosshair comes in. And Crosshair, hey, he knows their strategies. He knows that they would have, listened into the comms and then circled around where they said. So he, set a trap for them. But of course, the Batch is able to get out of the trap.
And they tried to tell Crosshair in this moment that there's a chip in his head, that it's not his fault. But and we even get Omega like trying to reach out to him about like, hey, I told you that it wasn't your fault. It's not your fault. But like, like they have that chip at like 200% effectiveness. And so he just like shrugs it off.
Yep. Yeah. And so they kind of escape, and they basically like fall or make their way into the engine port of the ship.
Yes.
And Crosshair basically holds them up and gets them stopped in that engine port, and if they come out, they'll be shot, and then they start the engine up, and so the Batch has to figure something out. They end up blowing the entire ring off of it, collapsing down in with it, and the engine still fires off as was to planned, but it now that the ring that directs it away is no longer there, it basically erupts all over some of the other troopers and Crosshair, burning him and injuring him badly.
Yes.
And we have the rest of the Batch split up. Omega and Hunter and Echo, Tech, and Wrecker all split up after the crash, and are going to circle back to meet at the their ship. where when Hunter and Omega arrive first, and when they get back to their ship, Hunter and Omega are confronted with, bam, Cad Bane. And they literally have a straight like a Western showdown, and Cad Bane proves to be the faster gun.
Which, I mean, not a surprise.
Yeah, like he should be. I mean, like there's nothing to say that Hunter is like a super quick draw. You know, he's a good soldier and tactician and everything that the batch kind of are, but he is not a deadly, killer bee killed bounty hunter.
But Hunter takes one to the chest, gets knocked out, and we see Cad Bane fly off with little Omega, and then we see through Hunter's eyes waking up like in the sort of daze, and Wrecker shows up and he's like, "Where's Omega? Where's Omega?"
Yeah, I kind of like that that sort of view that they did. It's very much like a shell shock. Like it makes me think of like kind of like old war movies and stuff. Like some explosion just went off and like some their heads ringing kind of thing.
Yeah, and then we get to see Crosshair basically being like, I can't remember. I think it's at the end of this episode, not the beginning of next episode, but it sort of bleeds in because they haven't left this planet by the end of this episode, I don't think.
Yeah, no, they get away from the planet at the end, at the beginning of the next episode.
But more or less, Crosshair is going to be bandaged up and taken off.
Yeah.
But I know we already sort of did our impressions of the episodes, but I just want to say, honestly, I think this may be the best episode of the series so far.
This actually probably ties with I think that the episode before this, the one with Rex, is still probably one of my favorite episodes because it includes Rex, and Rex is one of my favorite characters. But also because it does have that, like the buildup that we've been seeing with the chip in Wrecker's head comes to its climax, and we get to see them fight. But I will actually say that this one's probably tied for my favorite one now. Because even though it doesn't include like one of my favorite characters, it does include a really awesome character, Cad Bane, and we get to see another thing we've wanted to see or been waiting for, is that again that coming back together of Crosshair and clashing with the Bad Batch again.
Yes, exactly.
So these two episodes are honestly like in my mind two of the best episodes because we get a payoff of something that's been building up since essentially the beginning of the series. So yeah, I would agree. I really like this one.
I'm just checking right now. I want to see if it says how many episodes there are. 16 episodes. So it's like halfway through the season. Episode 7 and 8 and then 9 are basically where they're making interesting stuff happen. So maybe that's why 10 feels like a filler, because maybe they have to do a little more filler before they can start resolving stuff around episodes like 14, 15, 16 maybe.
Yeah. So what are your, you have any talking points on this episode specifically?
Well, we can get more into the talking points at the end, or maybe we can do talking points maybe at the end of the next episode because the two tie in together, and then we can.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably good. So basically leading right into the next episode 9, we Bounty Lost. We have the batch is escaping from the planet, getting their jump drive online to, jet out, while Crosshair and a few other troopers are flying after them, trying to shoot them down. They are trying to figure out where Omega is and follow her, but there's just no signal left, and they don't know how to get a hold of her.
And their rear shields are about to fail if they don't jump to
somewhere. So they just end up they just jump out. Omega is on Cad Bane's ship with his droid, and she is locked up. And Cad Bane's basically like, sit tight, kid, blah, or we're just heading, he doesn't give a shit. She's locked up, and there is basically she tricks his robot into releasing her, and then assists in like fixing his leg, and uses that opportunity to short circuit him so that she can escape once they've landed on the planet where
she is nice enough to fix his leg first.
Yeah. Omega is nice. And I could see that, she wasn't lying to say, I can help you fix your leg. She just ended up doing a little more.
So once he lands, she jumps off the ship and tries to basically radio to the batch. And she is able to like communicate with them, but they're not able to immediately get her location. And so and as she's trying to basically use a power source to try and get it to them, Cad Bane shows up and recaptures her. So it's yeah.
One thing I want to say is that I appreciate that. I would say like I don't like Deus Ex Machina very much, and I don't like a similar thing, which is where like things happen to characters that are uncharacteristic, right? And I like that the way that Omega escaped is because of a personality trait of Cad Bane, which is like his callousness. Basically, he ignored his robot and didn't like help fix him, which he probably could have. I mean, he could have just had his ship on like autopilot, go to this planet, right, and fix his robot. But he's kind of just like, well, F you, right? Like, I don't have time to deal with this. Like, just ignored him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell like that kind of personality trait maybe in some ways adds his intimidation or whatever, and it served him well in some ways. But it ends up being somewhat his downfall here, because if he had just fixed Toto, there would have been no way Amiga would have escaped. She would have just been locked up, and he would have gotten her, taken her to Tonway. Though obviously Fennec Shan would have been a different thing there, but he might have turned her into Tonway, and then been there to defend Tonway and fight Fennec Shan.
She wouldn't. Omega wouldn't have gotten that first message out.
Yeah,
and that would have meant that the batch weren't looking intently when the later like the spike occurs that clues them into where she was.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I like that it's not like he legitimately failed as a bounty hunter, like somehow she escaped from his lockup, like she was, because it just seems like to me, I'm like, if they made it like, oh, she pulls a panel open and like unlocks the thing, I'm like, there's no way that an experienced bounty hunter, one of the best lets a little girl like escape, unless she again uses basically she tricks his robot into helping him.
Yeah,
because the robot has something, she has leverage that I can fix your leg and nobody else is going to help you. And so I kind of like that it's indirectly his fault, but not like a failing of him as a bounty hunter.
But yeah, so Cad Bane then meets up with Tonway, and they're about to do the exchange, and Tonway gets shot. Tonway.
Well, I don't think Cad Bane actually met up with Tonway. I think he's on his way to get there, and then like we hear an explosion or a gunshot, and like
I thought it was like he saw like the shadow of her, and then the blast goes off. It's been a week since I watched the episode, so I can't quite remember.
I think it was like Omega shows up and sees Tonway's body is laying there on the ground, and it's like, Tonway, and then Fennec Shan steps out and is like, hey, and she has the case with the credits.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense actually.
Yeah. And he's like, give it up, Shand. Like,
yeah, and they have their bounty hunter standoff. I think Toto comes around and takes the case.
Yeah, he takes the case, starts flying off, but then I think he gets like shot at by Shand or something, like an explosion happens.
And then the credits fall.
And the credits all fall. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, like what are these guys even here for now? Like
here's my question. After the credits fall out, why doesn't Cad Bane just, like go into recover the credits mode?
Because I mean, the briefcase straight opened, and it like they spilled out into like the open air of this planet. Like they're gone.
Yeah. Well, but like your robot can fly, so he can try and grab some of the credit. I mean, it's just losing the money outright.
I mean, like I understand that, I get that, but it's kind of like
it's a bit nitpicky, I know. But
yeah, I mean, his robot could probably try and grab a couple. When we're talking, it's a robot with two like kind of hands. They're not even like full dexterous hands or anything.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're just like prongs. Like malleable prongs. So it's like what he could grab 2 credit sticks. I mean, like it's better that his robot helps him secure the package, which he can still. Hey, he's got whether they lost your credits or not. Like you need to pay me if you want it. Like they'll just pay again.
Yeah,
is what I can assume. Like make sure I keep my bounty.
I feel like if Cad Bane had walked away with the credits, he wouldn't have needed Omega. But because the credits were lost, that's why we got the fight. And so. I get that, yeah.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter. I mean, he's doing it for the credits. And it's like, well, fuck, I didn't get my credits, so I need to make sure I still keep my bounty until I get paid for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, we have the ensuing battle. Like Omega kind of escapes from them, but they're fighting each other.
This is pretty much the episode going back and forth between these two fighting. Omega stealthing around, one of them finding Omega, the other one showing up, and they start fighting again. Omega scurries off again.
Yeah.
That's sort of the episode until I can't remember what the source of it is, but there's like some sort of at some point, Omega is able to get.
She gets into a flight pod.
Yeah.
And flies off, but had already put out a thing. And
the beacon was what I was talking about.
Yeah,
like what I can't remember what she did to do the beacon.
Yeah.
Oh, we actually skipped the part where at the beginning of the episode, Tech reveals to the rest of the batch that Omega's DNA shows that she is an unmodified clone of Jango Fett, much like Boba Fett, where she doesn't have that enhanced accelerated aging, and she would be basically a source for making more clones since the Kaminoans' source DNA is degrading.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why she is of such value.
Yeah. But yeah, that is essentially the episode, though, which, I mean, it's good that we make sure to make that point because it's pretty important.
Yeah.
But yeah, Omega escapes.
Omega escapes. The batch pick her up. Cad Bane
fails to get her and is pissed about it. And Fennec Shan succeeds in prevent. Her mission was really just to prevent Cad Bane from having.
Yeah.
As we see at the end of the episode, she talks to not Lama Su, not Tanwe.
It's I think Nala Se or
something.
Nala Se. Yeah.
She confirms with Nala Se. Cad Bane doesn't have her, but she escaped from me. And she says, well, as long as Lama Su doesn't get her, then she's safe. And
so we see there's a bit of an internal difference of opinions between the Kaminoans.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's get into our talking points about these two episodes here. And one thing I want to make a point of is that, okay, so my force sensitive theory, right? I think that the second episode here, Bounty Lost, actually, for learning the first generation thing, almost takes away from my theory because it means that that's her importance, not that she's force sensitive. It's revealing that that's essentially why she's supposed to be important. However, I do not believe that that's the only reason she's important.
She's still modified in some way because she's still a she.
Yeah,
it's not a perfect copy of Jango.
Yeah, I still think that while she is the genuine and unmodified or like a first generation clone with her pure DNA or whatever, I still think she's force sensitive. I don't know if that's a maybe it is just a completely independent factor that she just has, but I believe that I think that Nala Se being the one that looked over her or guided her or something like that maybe is the only one that knows it. And Lama Su just thinks oh, she's just a pure genetic material and we need her for that. That's all he thinks of because, I mean, he's probably the prime minister. He probably doesn't even really have anything to do with the process of doing that. See, but Nala Se is the one that actually was looking over her or watching over her. I mean,
I could see how this episode tips against your theory in her being significant because she's perfect genetic material. But I think you raise a good point. And I do think that the next episode lends more to your force theory.
Yeah. And so, there is something that tips it a little back in that favor. And I think we still get enough little tips that make us, again, a big glaring one is that original Crosshair moment. There's no reason she says that it's going to be that is a straight force sensitive, you are precognating, an event that's going to happen. So,
and there's one thing to be said about maybe she's just really intuitive with this stuff, but we live in the Star Wars universe. Intuition is force sensitivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the time, that's what that is.
Yeah. So I still think, even though this one does almost take away from it, I still think my theory is sound, and I think by the end we're gonna see that. And if we don't, well, it'll basically be just with my theory from the Loki Lamentus episode, and fuck me. Apparently, I just put a bunch of these hints out here just for it to be nothing because they wanted us all to run around being she's force. I could actually at this point I could see Disney being ha ha ha, you guys thought she was force sensitive, losers.
I'm curious because I haven't looked up much online reactions to the show as it's ongoing. Do you know if that's a common theory people have, or is that more an original Robert Bain?
I don't know that I'm the only one. I know for sure I'm not the only one. I have seen a Screen Rant, which I do watch sometimes for their Easter eggs, and references in the episodes. And they also said it in one of the episodes, but I did not. Hey, I came up with this before I ever watched any of that. I always watch the episodes.
Yeah,
and don't watch it.
You jumped on that train very early in the show, and the more I think about it, the more I kind of like it as an idea and agree with it as a concept.
Yeah, again, I think the linchpin is the Crosshair moment. It was way too like, why would you even say this? There's no reason for you to ever think this at all. That's even if everything else has been pretty like, I mean, it's all been just like, ooh, she's kind of intuitive and a little of this and a little of that. Those are all like little things, and those could be totally explained away. But that Crosshair moment, I don't think that can be explained away. I think she's force sensitive. The only question is, was it something they programmed into her, and that's why she's valuable, or does she just happen to be force sensitive? And at this point now, I'm starting to think maybe it wasn't programmed. Maybe the Kaminoans had nothing to do with it. She just came out like this, and Nala Se knows, and so that's why she's, and maybe like Nala Se is even kind of sympathetic to the Jedi, you know, like she's probably fully aware that it was baked into the clones.
She definitely does. No, she must know that.
Yeah, so she might be sympathetic to the Jedi and what they were trying to do, and the idea that like, oh, this is like, hey, there's a child that, you know, was under my care that is force sensitive and could end up being another Jedi. So that's even maybe why she's like, I don't want her to end up in Lama Su's hands, because then that will be wasted or whatever. It's better that she be out there in the world with these runaway they're not refugees, these outlaws that are just escaping the Empire, because otherwise she'll just be killed, and she wants her to survive. She has maybe she likes her or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's I even think it might be like a pet project kind of thing. Like, oh, I don't want them to kill my little thing. So I still think it's pretty sound.
I agree. Briefly, let's talk. So Crosshair shows up in this episode, and we get a little more of him. Like it seems like he's rather unchanged, other than the burn, and I'm wondering how that injury is going to affect him. Like, see, I think like prior to this episode, I was on board with the idea that Crosshair was going to be able to rejoin the batch, but I think like it's kind of trending in a direction in that I don't know if Crosshair is coming back, and I kind of would like him to come back maybe in like the season 2, but I'm not sure. I don't think so, actually.
Yeah. So I actually think at this point that if Bad Batch keeps having seasons, like if it's continuous series,
yes.
And I don't know that it is, maybe you do.
I don't. I just have essentially the hope that it continues for more than a series. Because like the Marvel shows make sense for miniseries. Bad Batch, in a way, also makes sense as a miniseries, but it makes even more sense to just keep going, because basically until this batch is dead, they're still doing stuff.
I could see the batch being kind of like a Rebels, like getting like I could see them having
of seasons, maybe not like 8 seasons.
Yeah, I don't see like they'd really just be milking it to give them too many seasons, but I could see like them doing like 2 or 3 seasons where it's like a limited seasonal event, because we know timeline wise they can't just exist forever. Like they just didn't exist any other point. They need to expire at some point. We need to see them go the way that they're gonna go, whatever that may be. I mean, whether it's like disbanded and most of them die or all of them die,
and if they have plans to make this multi-season, then I think even more that at the very least Crosshair is not coming back this season, maybe like a future season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just not trending in a direction of him returning to them, I don't think.
Yeah, what I actually am starting to suspect now is I feel like here's another theory, is that they're going to like get a hold of Crosshair, like have another encounter with him, but then like sneak up and like, knock him over the head and be like, oh, we're going to remove his chip.
But they have to like come back to this scrap sector to get the medical bay.
Maybe they find some, I'm just thinking like they find some alternative or whatever, and they get the chip out of Crosshair's head, and they're like, Crosshair, hey, you're okay now. Like you can be our, on the team again and something like that. And for a moment, like maybe Crosshair's going to be like, yeah, sure. And then it basically, I think he's going to just like, he fully like, he's like, hey, I didn't have much control there, but like, there was a part of me that actually wanted to be doing all that. Like I'm not really on your team anymore. Like I'm fully like, you guys like burned my face and stuff. Like, even though again, he was trying to kill them, I feel like there's going to be
burned his own face.
He did burn it. He did actually literally do that. So I think there's going to be like this resentment or this like internal, like Crosshair is not that good of a person. And we're going to see him sort of not, I think he's going to like turn on them even without a chip.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we'll see though. That's just kind of like an idea of how I'm thinking it might evolve. I think that here's what I might suspect: if we get multiple seasons, I feel like maybe Crosshair is going to die at the end of the season. I think they're gonna have some kind of epic showdown.
A possibility.
I think he's gonna, maybe he'll even like fight as hard as he can and gets his chip. And like, I think I mean, it might be actually too graphic for a show that's somewhat directed towards kids, but I think he'll take his own life or something. Or I think he'll resist it as hard as he can in some last ditch moment.
Maybe they like run the chip too high and it kills him.
Yeah. Or maybe they run it too high and it like shorts out and he like takes out the leader of one of those Empire leader guys or something. I think so something like that might
he's
happen.
able to go out in like a blaze of glory. I would like that. That would be cool.
I think that would be cool. Like a redemption. Like he does so many things that were like, oh, like he's like evil and stuff. But then in the end, he's like, I didn't have a choice. So if that happened, I think it'd be very satisfying. And I think it would lead us towards the eventual, like the Bad Batch can't exist forever. So like, will Crosshair join the Bad Batch again? No, but will he maybe redeem himself? That'd be good. And we would see, how he kind of ends and fails out. And then, as the seasons go on, I could see them like another one of the batch, like, dying or something. And then the final season being like, they all sacrifice themselves in some ultimate way kind of thing.
Yeah, I could see that. You know who I think is even more likely to die in the course of this series?
Hunter. Or Wrecker.
I was gonna say our guest appearance from episodes 8 and 9. I don't know if Cad Bane makes it out of the series.
Man, that's very possible. I think that would be I don't think the Star Wars community would be very happy with that.
But
I think they want to imagine that Cad Bane just keeps existing out there in the world.
But does he though? And if anyone was going to take him out,
I guess it's Fennec Shand, right?
Or the Batch.
Or the Batch, yeah. Well, I don't think Cad Bane even has an illusion that he could beat the Batch, like all of them. Of course, he's like a quick draw. You probably beat any of them, and like to the shot, like 1-on-1, like he did with Hunter. But
unless they just put him in for that small little arc, but I don't feel like you tease him into the show without bringing him back. And if there's anyone they would accept Cad Bane losing to, it's probably the Batch and or Fennec Shand, because those are liked characters.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I hope he doesn't die. I think I would, my personal, I say it's the Star Wars community, but I think personally, I want to believe that he just keeps existing as a bounty hunter out there, and maybe they use him in another thing. Like I'd love to see him in some kind of even like another spinoff. Like when they do the rain, is it like the Rangers or there's like
maybe he showed. I just had a cool thought. What if he showed up in the Obi-Wan show and we got a live action Cad Bane?
Oh my God, that'd be sick. I would be very cool with that.
Okay, now I don't want him to die in this so he can show up there.
Yeah.
Because it would make sense for him to come across Obi-Wan and for Obi-Wan to be able to finally take care of him.
Yeah. Is Obi-Wan a live action?
I think so, because it has Ewan McGregor in it.
Oh my God. Wow, I didn't even realize that. Oh, that's gonna be so good.
Maybe it's animated, but I mean,
with Ewan McGregor just doing the original voice acting.
But that's weird.
But that actually makes no sense because
Obi-Wan's voiced by a different person in the show.
Yeah, older Obi-Wan is voiced by I think it makes oh God, yeah, that was so good. And a middle-aged Obi-Wan Kenobi, like not old what's that old the old Obi-Wan's
Alec McGinnis,
yeah, like not old but like just aged.
Yeah,
man, yeah, that'll be sick. But hey, that's another podcast right there.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's been 20 years since over 20 years since the Phantom Menace came out, so
that's insane. Well, I mean, it's more important to consider when the Revenge of the Sith, because that's our last time seeing Ewan McGregor.
15 years.
So he's actually literally aged like a reasonable amount. Like
he's like halfway to what he should. Because if you think that
wasn't Luke like 20 or something when he starts?
I think he's effectively 20. So he's like 5 years away from looking like Alec McGinnis. But if you look at Ewan McGregor, that doesn't really match up.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor. Well, here's the thing though. Okay, you look at actual Ewan McGregor, but I think I've heard people talk about this online where they're like, "Wow, how does in this many years he looks so old or whatever?" because he lives on a fucking desert planet, man.
Yes,
it's rough living. Like he literally lives.
It makes me wonder if they're going to age him up, or if they're going to have him, because he doesn't look as old as he does later, if they're going to have him play into earlier, not 15 years into him being there, maybe like 5 years into him being there, because he doesn't look that much older.
Yeah, so that would make more sense if they just did a 5 years older and then, but still age him up a little bit. Like still put like, hey, even 5 years on this planet was not, kind to Obi-Wan, because literally we see Obi-Wan lives in a cave. He doesn't even live in a real house.
Yeah,
like he, so it's not like he's living well. He doesn't have indoor plumbing. We can assume like he's just straight up like roughing it, and because he's a badass,
that weirdo. That weirdo old Ben Kenobi.
Yeah. So, but yeah, getting back to the Bad Batch though.
Cad Bane showing up was a delight for you though.
Yeah, certainly super cool. I mean, just, and again, even though I don't feel like we got a ton of significance out of episode 9, really just so great to watch Fennec Shand and Cad Bane fight.
It was hella cool.
Yeah. I feel like we really got to just see like the suite of, like Cad Bane as a bounty hunter, right? He had rocket boots. He has a flamethrower. Like he had a bunch of tricks up his sleeve, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't reveal them. He didn't use them until he had to, right? It's not like he was just like, bam, pop off my tricks immediately. He was like, no, I'm a gunfighter. I'm gonna fight it out like this, and then like only when he needed it, like okay, bam, I'm gonna like, all right, bitch, you're on my fucking nerves. Like bam, flamethrower her to scatter her away. Lily falls off the edge of the thing. Boom, turn on my jet boots now.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's a smart thing. Like that's probably one of the reasons you think like Cad Bane is, one of the best bounty hunters around. Like he doesn't just, use whatever. He doesn't give away his secrets or his tricks and stuff. Like he uses them only when he needs them.
He's effectively like a bad guy version of Mando without the armor.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing too. I was like, wow, this guy's like really just busting out like some Mandalorian type.
The flamethrower and the jet boots really were just like, oh wow, he has that.
Yeah, no, seriously. And I don't remember, again, it's been so long since the Clone Wars. He might have had those things in the Clone Wars too, but like because it's been so long, it was almost nice because it was refreshing. I knew who Cad Bane was and I recognized him, but I forgot that he even had those. So I started watching him fall off that thing. I was like, oh fuck, like this guy's literally tied up, falling off this thing. He's gonna die. And it's like, nope, I have jet boots, and I was like, oh, sick. Like, because that would have just been disappointing as hell if he literally was just like, whoop, all right, he's gone.
And then Finnick has to do battle with the little Seth Green robot.
Yeah, Seth Green, actually quite amusing as that robot.
I gotta say, like, and what's more, whenever because like when he showed up and I heard his voice, I was like, it just makes you kind of happy because like Seth Green probably is just so happy to be part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, isn't he like a super Star Wars fan? Like,
I mean, just based off of the Robot Chicken, the amount of Star Wars specials they did.
Yeah, what an honor, even if you just have to be like a robot, like a small robot, not even like a really cool one or anything, like a tiny floating semi-annoying one.
But like that's who Seth Green is.
Wow, yeah, okay, fair point.
Maybe not semi-annoying, but
But yeah, that was really cool to see Cad Bane, Fennec Shand. That battle was well done and entertaining. I was happy to get to watch it. But again, that episode was not. Yeah, that episode was basically just watching them do that.
Yeah, and then we got Omega sort of like skulking around the planet. There's like some point there was like a cloning facility. We don't really figure out. I don't think it identifies where this planet is or what the significance of it is.
I'm sure that somewhere like somebody knows what that planet is. Like we went and looked it up online. They're like, yeah, this is clearly this. But I got this very Cloud City vibe. I mean, it's literally like these.
That was my thought too.
But it's not Cloud City because it's like abandoned, right? Like or maybe
it's a different part of the planet,
or and now following on this, I could be totally wrong. This is actually like someone probably knows better, and they're just like, this is clearly not what it is. But what if that is actual Cloud City? And because this is in the past,
Lando
Calrissian has not come to like revitalize it, and so it's an empty like Cloud City cloning blah 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 blah. Like I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that one out there. I'm probably wrong. Yeah, I'm sure that somebody knows. Like no, this is this planet. It just looks like Cloud City. Blah blah. But yeah, maybe that is. I don't know. Maybe I like theories, man. Like
I do think that's I like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to necessarily mention about either of those two episodes.
So we can get into
8 was great. Nine had cool stuff, but like over like story wise is, I mean, Lily the Batch is only in it just to be like, where is she?
Yeah. So we can get into our recap of episode 10. I feel like not a lot happens, to be honest. They get assigned the mission by Sid. Mm-hmm. They go to do the mission.
They go to Raxus, right? I think it's called Raxus or something like that. They go to this planet Raxus, which is like the Separatist capital.
The former Separatist capital.
Former Separatist capital.
Because the Separatists no longer exist.
Yeah. So, basically
the seat of the Separatist government during the Clone Wars, Raxus.
Yeah. Basically the Empire's, occupied it, and they make it clear that like they basically all the other senators that argue against it have been taken care of. Like either they're in prison or they're dead. So,
and then this beloved senator, clearly when he goes up at the beginning of the episode, it's actually, I do kind of like how the episode opens, because it opens on Raxus with the senator coming up to give a speech for the Empire to basically calm his people's nerves. And when he gets up there and the people see him, he isn't willing to go through with it because like it just goes against his beliefs as a separatist. And he refuses to go along with the Empire, and he's taken off. And when the people start to like hint at like revolting, the Empire moves in these big old weapons, and the people are put in their place.
Yeah, straight military occupation state. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, so we get that, but clearly the senator knew that might happen. Kind of gives a signal to his assistant droid. And the droid sends out a message to Sid or some sort of intermediary to say, I need help, or my master, is it a master? My owner, whatever. They need rescuing. And so Sid gets the mission and says, hey, boys, you got to go get I got a big payout to go rescue this senator. And at first, when they tell when Sid tells the Batch it's this guy in this place, he's like, well, wait, what are you talking about? That's a separatist place. Like, we don't want to go rescue a separatist, and they're a little opposed to it. But she's basically like, do it because you owe me a bunch of money and it'll pay well. Like, so.
But after the events of the prior two episodes, Hunter asks Omega to, stay put.
Yeah, which she's like, I'm part of the team. I need to go too. I just keep being like, okay, honestly, I understand that it's like,
she was just kidnapped, so I get it.
Like, come on, Omega, are you serious? Like, it's.
But
whatever.
Also, like, she keeps proving herself. She keeps getting out of it or saving them. But this time they don't need saving.
I think overall she is a liability. She does help and is helpful. And I think there's moments where they make her helpful. Like back to that episode where they where they are supposed to go bring the freaking the monster thing.
That's
the Rancor.
The Rancor.
Yeah, they're supposed to bring Rancor back, and they all just get captured. I'm like, there's no why is the Bad Batch getting captured right now? Like,
but she saves the day. That's the episode where they prove her usefulness, but it's arguable why she needed to do that in the first place, because they shouldn't have been captured, is basically what you're getting at.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't think the Bad Batch should have even been captured. I feel like this episode just exists so that she can be, I was helpful,
Yeah.
But again, well, they did just get captured, and she did blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Nonetheless, this episode, they tell her to stay, and she's like, okay, fine. And Sid's like, here, get to work, scrub this counter or whatever while they stay. The Batch lands, meets the droid on Raxus, and basically slowly make their way, like stealthing through, taking out stormtroopers along the way. Notably, stunning every stormtrooper that they see, not killing.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's like they don't want to kill them, they're trying to be merciful somewhat, or if if stun blasts make less noise.
Maybe
that's kind of like because
distinctly my instinct is to say that they don't revel in killing their brothers.
Yeah, even if they always did say they felt separate, they call them the regs and stuff. But I would agree with that they don't really want to kill these guys. Like, it's not like they have a choice. And
Echo specifically is not thinking of them as regs.
Yeah, exactly. So he was just one of them. So
yeah.
But yeah, so they make their way through. I do think it's also part of like stealthing, right? Because I think we've seen them, like when they were fighting the stormtroopers, they weren't stunning on the junk planet with
I suppose, but
yeah, in that one it was like a kill or be killed moment, and they were just like, all right. Here, I think there might be something to the idea that stun blasts don't make as much noise. I think because they sound like you like that, whereas like a laser blast is like pew pew pew, like it's. So if you're trying to be stealthy, I think using stun blasts is essentially the way to go.
Maybe they just didn't want to cause violence, because if they spark violence, then there's gonna be like a backlash at the people.
Yeah,
perhaps. But
plus, it also just might be pretty cutthroat. As far again, always in the reference of like this being a little bit marketed toward kids, they're just straight up like in here like gunning down these stormtroopers. It's a little more like if you're in the heat of battle and you have to be fighting.
Well, I mean,
but like if you're straight up like watching them walk up to dudes and go wham, like just like whacking them.
Stunning when stunning makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So, but they go and they get the senator out, and after they get the senator out, it's a little more complicated. And
they sort of get caught, or like they are alerted to the breaking them out. They commandeer a one of the tanks. Yeah, they're walkers, like the tank walkers. And basically there's a bunch of interactions where like there's a shot and then they have to repair it, and then they're fighting guys off. There's like a whole bunch of kind of cool, interesting conflict as they're trying to get him out, and eventually they blow up a hole in the wall and they make it.
There's an attempt at a arc of the character dynamic of being okay with the separatist dude, where they're basically like trying to escape, and the separatist leader tells them to basically go towards a dead end. And at first they're just like, what? That's a dead end. No. And he's just like, you have to trust me. And then they just trust him.
Yeah.
Which ends up being the correct choice, because like he's able to basically direct them to the wall, which has a secret escape tunnel. Yeah. And through that, they're able to get out.
Yeah. And they, escape, and they bring him back to Sid successfully. And
we get a moment before he gets on the ship to leave where he's like, what am I doing? I can't leave this place. And I think it's Echo who says, yeah, you gotta live to fight another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like a very, we'll get into it, I guess.
Yeah. We'll get into it. But we get back, and meanwhile, she was kind of like talking to Omega, and she has this like a little bit of a conversation where she's like, well, you need to be useful or something. Yeah. Kid. Like be more useful. And then basically Omega is watching Sid and the two patrons that are always there playing Dejeric, or playing that hollow game on the table.
Dejeric.
And apparently Omega is a very good strategist, and it knows what moves to make and to win the game, and
is able to win a game for Sid that she was on the legs of losing.
Yeah, and basically Sid ends up turning that into them both profiting by her beating people over and over again. And when the batch comes back, Omega has earned enough by winning into Dejeric
to pay all their debts off.
Yeah, which is awesome. And they basically turn it in. And at the end, we have Hunter go, all right, well, let's play a game. And if you win, then you don't have to, sit out any more missions, which is basically him saying, you don't have to set out any more missions. Cause clearly, like, I don't know if there's any reason to believe that he's better at Dejeric than someone apparently that's very, very good at it.
Oh, maybe he is. Maybe, yeah, because he's the tactical mind before her. So,
yeah, maybe. But I'm assuming it's basically like, oh wow, you just won against a whole bunch of people and are really good. Well, let's see if you win again, then you like. I feel like it's him just basically giving.
I'm wondering how much of this. I'm wondering if we're gonna see the game, or like, what if the next episode is like mostly tied around this game, and we get to finally see how Dejeric is played.
Yeah, maybe. I bet there's like rules online. There's probably someone that's like, this is how Dejeric is supposed to be played. Like, I went through the annals of Star Wars history to find out.
I could beat Chewbacca in a game of Dejeric.
Yeah. But so that's basically, end of the episode. We kind of got through it. Now, I think we both want to get to this point about how the summary of this episode sort of gets some sort of point across where the batch ideologically has to change their ideologies or blah blah blah,
that they're challenging their ideologies, and they really aren't. They just have to accept that the Empire is not who they were fighting with before, and it's like the Empire is now their enemy, and so it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, basically.
Yeah, but it's just
they go through there's no like arc with the guy. They don't like have like thoughtful conversations about like changing their perspective.
Yeah, there's literally like no conversation at all. In fact, there's really no moral dilemma or any real challenge to anything here, other than that they say, I don't want to help a separatist, and by the end they help a separatist. Like that's it. Again, you did point out the point where like Echo's like, I'm not gonna like he does say some things, and at the end he's like, he gives him like a pat on the back, kind of like, oh, it's cool if I didn't live for another day. But there's literally no actual journey there. It's not like we see any narrative that exists where it's like, oh, we see them like getting into some kind of argument with the guy, and then like he's like, no, I'm not a bad guy. I just care for my people. Like if we just had that conversation somewhere right in the middle, like they took a time to have some little moment, then maybe it would make a little more sense.
It would make more sense. It would make the description of the episode make sense. And I think it would make the episode better because it would like give some like reason for it. It would like give like meaning to the episode, but without it, it's like, it's telling us that there's meaning behind the episode without giving it to us.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's just kind of like, I don't know if they just like maybe like, hey, maybe in like the background, like there was more to what was supposed to be in this episode, and they're like cut it down to 20 however many minutes, and this is what you get. But I don't understand what the point was with that. Just and now we're really probably focusing like too much on what the summary of the episode said.
See, the issue is that we both happened to read the summary. I almost wish that maybe you hadn't read it or I hadn't read it, so we like went into it and it was just like, oh yeah, it was just a decent episode, but like, and not be so like kind of annoyed by that detail of it.
Yeah, it really did just it did just kind of like stick with me. They were like, this summary just doesn't even make any sense. Like but overall though, the episode was, I mean, kind of cool. I mean, because
of the summary, it felt like a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So one thing, so the last episode I said, hey, this takes away from my force sensitive theory. I think this episode lends a little more to it. Again, another moment where I
agree. I was like, because like after last week, I was like, okay, so the force thing's kind of out the window. And then this episode, I'm like, so
I didn't think it was out the window, but I did see them like, okay, I feel like they're leaning another way. But now I think this just adds another one of those small moments that lead us to believe. So we can all just say, okay, it can all be explained away that Omega is just very smart, right? She is smart and intuitive, and that's fine. Like you could just say that, right? There are other characters in Star Wars that are smart, intuitive, and not force sensitive, even though that's always arguable. Because in my personal opinion, if you're very intuitive and you know, if you're very intuitive, you are somewhat force sensitive.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Like I don't think there is anything as being just, you know, like some, you know, extra sensory kind of intuitiveness and not being force sensitive. Whether you are a Jedi, you don't have to be a Jedi. There's the character from Rogue One, the monk guy who is not a Jedi and not trained, but he's one with the Force.
I mean, Ahsoka's not a Jedi.
Yeah, she's not. Yes, to say like even a trained, person in the Force.
Yeah,
like you can be in touch with it and in tune with it. Like, I can't remember his name. The Donnie Yen's character from Rogue One.
I know who you mean.
He's a really cool character, and he is not like from what we say, it's not like he can use the Force, but he is one with the Force. He is, he is a disciple of believing in the Force and works with it. And to some degree, I would believe that that's a measure of Force sensitivity that's below ever having been potential for a Jedi, but like still within touch with it.
Here's a question I have. I'm certainly not as familiar with the movies as most Star Wars fans are. Do we actually ever see someone who is force sensitive played to Jarek? Because I can only think of Chewbacca playing non-force sensitive people.
I don't know that we do necessarily, but here's some references to like the Force lending to general like games.
I just wanted to know if there's anything that like, because like if there's like an example of like a Force person playing it and not like instantly excelling at it, then it could be like a slight against it.
I don't think there's any example that I can think of. I mean, I could be wrong,
in my mind, it's Chewbacca playing with Han in the original movies, and then I think he plays
not Han. He's playing with a Luke or
Obi-Wan
or something.
If he's playing with one of them, but do they win?
I can't remember. No, he's playing with C-3PO or something because they literally say he's like, yeah, you never seen a fucking Wookiee like tear a man's arms off or something, and they're like, oh no, I'm pretty sure it's something like that. Like he's playing with like C-3PO.
And then in the newer movies, I think he plays with either Finn or Poe.
Yeah. But I just can't remember, but we could be wrong there. Maybe it was he was playing with no, because while they're playing, I think Luke is doing his training with Obi-Wan.
That makes sense then.
So, but we have okay, what was I? Oh, Damn, there's this one point.
The force sensitivity.
Force sensitivity, but then there was another point. I think actually maybe that was the point.
I think you more or less got that across.
Yeah.
And so this episode brought me a little more on board with that. I think another thing that makes the episode disappointing is that some of what I like most about the show is Omega building relationships with the Batch. Like we actually kind of skipped over this. In episode 8, we get like a little bit of Wrecker playing like a thing with like disarming a mine with Omega, and you get this like I just like their relationship. It's almost like a big brother kid sister kind of thing, and it's just kind of cute. And we get none of that this episode, because they're separated.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, that actually does kind of brings me back to, I think that we're being led to really like Wrecker, and so I also think he's gonna die. I think another point. I think that him and Crosshair might kill him, and then Crosshair might feel so bad about it that he ends up like, dying or doing whatever, because that's how you do it. You make people fall in love with a non-essential but very likable character, and then you kill him. So that everybody feels like really like, oh my God, I can't believe you did it. And so we're all very against whatever.
The problem I have with that is that there's not enough other members of the Bad Batch that make them likable, because like I said, like Tech still is a kind of nothing character.
Completely two-dimensional. He's just like, I am here to do all the tech stuff. And Echo even almost less so. Like, but Tech actually has a role in this group. I don't know what Echo's even supposed to do.
Echo is fully relying on his character built from the Clone Wars. And if you don't if you don't have the background of liking Echo from the Clone Wars, then you're not going to like him anymore here.
Yeah, honestly, Echo was a cool character because he actually had some real interesting before he became a fucking cyborg. He had a bunch of stuff.
He was more interesting than most clones, but he's less interesting than the Batch.
He's the least interesting clone of a bunch of interesting clones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just feel like they're really doing nothing with Tech and Echo so far, and I think we've been saying it since like the first-ish episodes where we wanted to see more of each person.
Yeah.
And so far it's like Hunter's like the leader, but honestly, I don't see very much nuance in Hunter either. He's definitely the leader and makes a lot of decisions, but I don't see
Hunter feels a bit like
he's just like, I like Omega and I like, and we're like, I don't know, like I don't feel like I'm getting very much from Hunter's character. And I want to give the caveat here. I know they're all cartoon characters, guys. Yeah. Like I know that,
but Wrecker has some nuance to him, because he's not just like a big brute. He's like the lovable brute.
Yeah, exactly. Like he seems like he's like, I just like explosions, but like he's still sensitive with Omega, like still cares about her.
Yeah.
Has shown that, he can be thoughtful, like, and made her little space room, and stuff, and teaches her to detonate the bomb. Like, like we see more to him.
Yeah.
Beyond all that.
He's got a personality.
Yeah. So, I think Wrecker's probably going to die. But yeah, this episode not really having that interaction. It was really just watching them on a mission, which was kind of cool. But like, again, we're not really getting much narratively. And that's why it feels like a filler episode.
And that's why I like the parts on Sid's, because that stuff was at least funny. And it was like cool. Mm-hmm. Like it didn't feel like something that I had seen before. It felt new to the series.
Yeah. So, but that episode was okay. I would like to see some better episodes coming soon. I understand they have to fluff out these the series a little bit to get us towards the end.
I don't mind a little filler here and there. But it just coming after the last 2 episodes is why it maybe becomes a little like I don't even think this is the worst episode of the series so far.
It's not.
But it's just like it's there.
Yeah. So,
but I think that's about it that we can cover.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all for me from now. So,
well,
I guess that's it. So, until next time, folks, this has been Robert
and Ryan.
Have a good one.
Yep.